When people think of 19th century wars, they imagine the thunder of Napoleon's cannons or cavalry charges across open fields. But a few decades later, another war erupted that looked very different. The Crimean War, fought from 1853 to 1856, is often called the First Modern War. It was the first conflict shaped by steam power, railways, the telegraph, professional nursing, and war correspondents sending reports back home. At first, it looked like a small quarrel between Russia and the Ottoman Empire, but it quickly drew in Britain, France, and Sardinia, and the fighting climaxed on the Crimean Peninsula at the great Russian naval fortress of Sevastopol. The root of the war was the decline of the Ottoman Empire, which Tsar Nicholas I called the sick man of Europe. Russia demanded the right to protect Orthodox Christians inside Ottoman lands, especially in the Holy Land. When the Sultan, backed by Britain and France, refused, Nicholas escalated. In July 1853, Russian troops simply marched across the River Pruth into the Ottoman vassal states of Moldavia and Wallachia, provinces situated in modern Romania. Historian Trevor Royal described it plainly. The Russian army marched into the Danubian principalities as if they were its own provinces. There was no opposition, but the move was a direct challenge to the Sultan's sovereignty. The Ottomans protested, then declared war in October 1853. Early fighting took place on the Danube and in the Caucasus. When Russia destroyed an Ottoman fleet at Sinop later that year, Britain and France, fearful that Russia might dominate the Mediterranean, declared war in March 1854. The Allies could have fought Russia on many fronts, but they chose Crimea for one clear reason: Sevastopol. Crimea had been annexed by Russia in 1783, and Sevastopol was the base of the Black Sea Fleet, the symbol of Russian naval power. By attacking it, Britain and France hoped to cripple Russia's navy and force the Tsar to the peace table. As Orlando Fidges explains, the Crimean War was not fought to settle a religious dispute in Jerusalem. It was fought over the balance of power in Europe, and Sevastopol was its symbolic heart. In September 1854, British, French, and Ottoman troops landed in Crimea and began their march toward Sevastopol, expecting a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a long and costly siege. The Crimean War earned its reputation as the first modern war because it blended old-style fighting with new technologies and social changes. Steamships carried troops and supplies across the Black Sea, while the Allies built a railway in Crimea to move ammunition and food. The electric telegraph sent news from the front to London and Paris within hours for the first time in history. William Howard Russell of the newspaper The Times became one of the first modern war correspondents, reporting directly from Crimea. His dispatches shocked the public. For example, "Our army is the worst supplied, the worst equipped that ever was sent to war." Florence Nightingale revolutionized military hospitals, introducing hygiene and organization that saved thousands of lives. But also, this war was modern due to mass casualties. More soldiers died from disease, cold, and hunger than from bullets, a grim foreshadowing of modern warfare. Historian Trevor Royal summarized it: "The Crimean War was a ghastly prelude to the conflicts of the 20th century. For the first time, technology, media, and mass politics combined to make war a truly modern experience." The Allies surrounded Sevastopol in October 1854, expecting the city to collapse quickly. Instead, they ran into one of the most stubborn defenses of the century. Russian engineers, sailors, soldiers, and even civilians worked day and night to turn the port into a fortress. Trenches, earthworks, and artillery batteries spread across the hills. Supplies were short, disease was rampant, and winters were brutal, but the defenders held on. Among them was a young artillery officer, Leo Tolstoy. His Sevastopol sketches captured the raw reality of the siege. "Here it is not men who are fighting, it is the iron that fights. The truth, the dreadful truth, is that every minute hundreds of men are slaughtered without reason, without glory, without sense." The siege lasted nearly a year. Major battles at Alma, Inkerman, and outside Balaclava turned into bloodbaths, with huge losses on both sides. What shocked Europe most was not just the fighting, but the misery. Armies freezing in mud, dying of cholera and dysentery, and surviving on rotten rations. By September 1855, after months of bombardment, the Allies stormed the southern defenses. Russian troops withdrew across the bay to the northern side, leaving the Allies in control of the shattered city. Sevastopol had fallen, but only after Russia had shown it could endure staggering punishment. By 1856, Russia was exhausted. The army had lost over 500,000 men, mostly to disease. Its economy was stretched, and its diplomats found the empire isolated. Austria had massed troops on the Danube, Prussia stayed neutral, and no ally came to Russia's aid. Tsar Nicholas I had died in 1855. His successor, Alexander II, saw little reason to continue a costly war against nearly all of Europe. Russia agreed to negotiate. After the Congress of Paris 1856, Russia kept Crimea, but the Black Sea was neutralized. No Russian or Ottoman warships, no arsenals, no fortifications. Russia ceded parts of Bessarabia near the Danube, and the independence and integrity of the Ottoman Empire was formally guaranteed. This was why the war was called a humiliation for Russia. Despite the heroic defense of Sevastopol, Russia had fought all of Europe and been forced to accept terms that stripped it of its Black Sea dominance, ruined its prestige, and left it diplomatically isolated. As an historian noted, Russia was not defeated in the field, but in the councils of Europe. The war exposed the hollowness of Nicholas's empire, forcing his successor to sue for peace. In conclusion, the Crimean War began when Russia marched unopposed into Moldavia and Wallachia, provoking Ottoman resistance and European intervention. It was fought in Crimea because Sevastopol was the heart of Russian naval power. It is remembered as the first modern war because it combined old battlefield heroics with railways, steamships, telegraphs, journalists, and professional medicine. The Siege of Sevastopol was long and bloody, and Russia's defenders fought with courage. But in the end, Russia accepted humiliating terms at the Congress of Paris. It kept Crimea, it lost its Black Sea fleet, and much of its international prestige. The Crimean War may not be as famous as the World Wars, but it was Europe's wake-up call, the end of the old order and the beginning of modern warfare.